Okay, good day everyone. This is the group 3, Arabal, Jarika May, and Garbo Yvette M. So, in this lesson, we are going to tackle a bold study that changed our understanding of animal communication and intelligence. So, if you have finished watching the first two videos before this, you know that the two animals. Before this, I'll assume you know that by now that there are initial experiments that was conducted on chimpanzees and tried to get them to speak but failed due to physiological limitations. So this Project Washoe was another experiment that wanted to investigate whether chimpanzees could learn and use American Sign Language. So what is Project Washoe? Project Washoe was a groundbreaking research project that aimed to teach ASL to a chimpanzee named Washoe. So let's get to know Washoe. Kindly, next slide please. So Washoe was a female common chimpanzee who made history as the first non-human to learn to communicate using signs adapted from ASL or American Sign Language. So she was only 10 months old actually when she was first acquired in a University of Nevada. So she was 10 months old when she first came to University of Nevada, where she became the subject for this study. So next slide please. So who are the people behind this experiment? So the experiment was conducted by R. Allen Gardner and Beatrix Gardner, a husband and wife team of psychologists. So they are a husband and wife team of psychologists, and Allen Gardner was known for his excellent background in learning theory and psychology, while his wife, Beatrix, has enormous expertise in ethology. So it is a scientific study of animal behavior. So both of them offered something to the table that provided them unique and fresh perspectives about animal communications. So next slide please. So it was Allen and Beatrix Gardner that had the brilliant idea of trying to teach sign language to a chimpanzee, which really made sense because chimpanzees are the closest genetic species to humans, and just like us, chimpanzees use gestural communication with each other. So, what was their reason for conducting this study? What prompted them to conduct this experiment? Well, it was conducted to test the hypothesis that chimpanzees could learn to communicate using a language system. This challenged the prevailing belief that language was a uniquely human trait. So, meaning they wanted to investigate whether chimpanzees are capable of learning a language, specifically the ASL, to communicate to human beings and even to their other chimpanzees. So you may be wondering why sign languages and not the vocal language. There are actually three major reasons for this. First, the vocal apparatus of chimpanzees are very different from that of a man, so it is unlikely to get them to produce human sounds. The second reason is that the two initial attempts that tried to teach them to speak all failed. They have gathered behavioral evidences that supports the idea that sign languages are possible to teach to chimpanzees, since one of their prominent features is using gestures. Now, to delve deeper how they conducted the study and what are the achievements of the experiment, I will now call my partner, Jorikame Aribal, to discuss it further.
Thank you, Yvette, for that wonderful report of yours. That was very comprehensive. So let's move on to our next report. So notice this video that I will play.
On June 21st, 1966, an infant chimpanzee arrived in our laboratory. We named her Washoe for Washoe County, the home of the University of Nevada. Because she was captured wild in Africa, we will never know just where or when Washoe was born, but we estimate that she was about 10 months old when she arrived in Reno.
Washoe Washoe learn her signs, they used many techniques, including fun and familiar games repeated over and over again.
The first sign that we did indeed teach to Washoe was the sign for more. More. More.
Natural chimpanzee gestures provided the basis for some signs.
Come. Open.
Okay, so let's just cut that video off. Let's go with the next slide, which is the Gardners raised Washoe in a home environment as similar to a human child's as possible. They used a method called immersive learning, communicating with Washoe exclusively in ASL, avoiding local language. So they do this to avoid confusion. So Washoe can learn only the ASL, the American Sign Language. They also created a conversational environment that encouraged communication without relying on awards for specific signs. So you imagine a chimp named Washoe. She was born in the wild but raised like a human child. That's the heart of this Washoe study, a revolutionary experiment that challenged our understanding of language and animals. So it goes beyond in humans. In the 1960s, psychologists like Alan and Beatrix Gardner took on a unique project. They adopted Washoe, a young female chimpanzee, and raised her in an environment as close to a human child as possible. This meant like no cages or plenty of interaction, and most importantly communication through American Sign Language. So they communicate using this ASL. But why they use ASL? The Gardner chose this ASL because they believe that the chimps had the physical capacity for a sign language, unlike the spoken language which we used for everyday life. They want to give Washoe a way to express herself beyond basic gestures and sound. Learning in Washoe, she learned this through immersion, which is this we call immersive learning. Washoe's education was all about the immersion. The Gardners and their team, they communicate with her exclusively in ASL only. They sign to each other and to Washoe throughout the whole day. This mimicked how human children learn language, by being surrounded by it. And that, yes, it received a lot of criticism, just like, it just Washoe imitate the sign language and she doesn't know anything about it. But Washoe didn't just mimic signs. She learned to associate with them, with objects and actions, and she can even identify color black and what it is. She would use sign language to point the black and to point herself. She could ask for things like more, to open a door, and describe what she saw, and even express emotion. It was like she was, having this conversation with her human companions, and it was just so amazing to hear. It's like, yes, like just like that. Now let's move on with the next slide, which is, yes, this is what I explained here, which is Washoe has approximately 50 signs of ASL, demonstrating her ability to understand the used language, and even taught some signs to her son Lulis, because later that day, later on, they transferred her to another facility, which she met another chimpanzees who can also communicate, and she amazingly taught them to, make a sign language. Washoe's groundbreaking work sparked a wave of research into animal communication and cognition. Her story continues to inspire scientists and the public alike, reminding us of complex and fascinating minds of our primate relatives. Yes, there was a controversy and criticism, of course. The Washoe study wasn't without its critics. Some argued that Washoe was imitating signs without truly understanding them. Others questioned the methodology of the study. However, the study impact and the question it raised are undeniable. Washoe lived a long and full life, continuing sign language and reaching it to her son, which is Lulis. She became a symbol of intelligence and a reminder that we still have much to learn about the minds of teachers. And then let's move. So that's it. Thank you so much and happy evening.